Hello and thank you for tuning into this Engerati studio interview at Asian Utility Week 2016. My name is Denise and with me in the studio is Steve Horley and you're the MD for Stakk.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we are going to be discussing home services market and all the challenges and opportunities that surround this particular market in this region. Let's start off with the opportunities. What are these in Asia? And how are they going to transform the home services market here?
I think first of all, there's a definition split.
Yeah.
I mean, home services is either the kind of thing you see for someone like a British Gas in Europe, who have a core electricity and gas retail business, but they also have a tack-on emergency services, boiler, heating and AC repair business. And they've done that largely because the core business is low margin, services is a higher margin business, and so it helps altogether in quite a tight margin environment. I think in Asia the market structure is very different for that kind of service, and so where typically homeowners might contract directly with the utility, I think because there's a lot more communal living, certainly in the cities in Asia, that may be done more at a kind of building management level. So question mark whether that as a product really works as a bundle opportunity for utilities. But I think the angle perhaps which may be interesting is around moving utility from supply towards a service model. And particularly in the markets that have deregulated or are, like Singapore and Japan, I think in those areas looking at transforming the business really from the front end and taking it away from I'm supplying you energy to figuring out how I act as an agent for you. And my job as an agent is to make sure it's cheap, it's simple, and I'm always out getting the best deal for you.
Right. And from what you've seen now, over the last while, are utilities really seeing the opportunity in this particular segment?
Look, I think everyone's probably quite a long way from the end goal. I think the message I'm getting today...
Specifically Asia?
Everywhere. I think Europe too. I think Europe perhaps moving slowly towards it. Asia, I think the message today and yesterday has been around let's stop losing money, first of all, and then let's figure out how we make money. But I think the great thing is there's recognition and people are very open to discussions. The point that's been made very well is the lessons that work in deregulated markets sometimes totally inappropriate for regulated markets. I think that's true, and I think that if there's no end to the regulation in sight, then I would say perhaps a different approach. But for markets who are considering deregulation or in that process, I think it's worth having a conversation.
All right. And where do you see this home service model in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years within Asia?
Look, I think it's very much like the telco bundling model. And like you're seeing triple play with broadband, phone and TV, I think there's the opportunity there for utilities to do something similar because they'll need to because of the pressure on margins.
Yeah. And the challenges that perhaps stand in the way of utilities from embracing this particular opportunity, are they any different from those experienced by the utilities, for instance, in Europe and the US?
Only insofar as the size of the target market and the state of disposable income, I guess. Because depending on the type of service, you're taking more money out of the household disposable income.
Yeah. All right. Any exciting projects that your company is involved in right now?
Certainly exciting. We are at the very early stages. So the thing that I am most interested in at the moment is peer-to-peer energy, or the digital grid. So the concept is very much one of, in a world where subsidy for distributed generation, so if you have solar panels and there's a regulated subsidy for inputting energy into the market, that's disappearing, and I think rightly so, because it distorts the market. But there's a bit of a vacuum. And I think that for people who have solar panels, they'll use a small amount. There's a lot of generation that's going into the grid, and there needs to be a business model that works for consumers and for the grid. And I think peer-to-peer, supported by technologies like blockchain, is a really, really fascinating area, and that's something we're starting to look at.
Perhaps maybe just expand on that a little bit for us and explain how that works and how that would actually work for this particular region.
Okay, so imagine you have solar panels, and let's say it's a standard size installation of about 4 or 5 kilowatt hours. especially in this part of the world, you'll be generating around 20 kilowatt hours net every day, net of your own consumption. Now, where there is a regulated subsidy for that, you'll get paid, but in most countries now, that's declining or disappearing. So that energy will basically be lost. And in the absence of anything else, it'll go to the people near to you who need energy at that time. If we put in a software layer that was able to track the energy that you generate, track where that was consumed, and then provide a commissioning structure whereby the grid got a cut for the transit of that energy over the grid to the consumer, and you as the generator got a cut, I think that's a model that can work both to make a sustainable distribution model, but also to encourage solar to continue to be rolled out.
My last question to you.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to utilities, or perhaps the energy sector as a whole within the region? I know the region is really huge, but is there any specific advice that you'd like to give utilities before you leave?
So I'm hopeless on regulated markets, so I can't be much use there. In deregulated or soon to be deregulated, I would say do something that on the surface sounds really stupid. It's very hard to change a money-making behemoth that is most utilities. So rather than trying to force dramatic change on your enterprise, why not approach the market like a challenger? Someone who's going to come in and challenge you and set up a new brand to be that challenger and learn how to do it much more cheaply in a way that's much more pleasing for the customer. And then over the next couple of years, take those lessons piecemeal back into your core business. Don't try to change everything at once, but learn by doing.
Fantastic, sound advice. Steve, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
Hope the rest of the event is a good one for you.
Great.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning into this session. If you're wanting more insight into Asia Utility Week, please go and have a look at our playlist on njrrt.com. Thank you.